Aloha and welcome to Chef Chai. Today I'm going to show you how to make a pork guisantes. This is one of the very popular Filipino dish. I love this one. Easy to make. You can make this at home. And the good thing is you can make it ahead of time. Then whenever you're ready to serve, you just bring it out. Perfect for a big family. So today we're going to make a pork guisantes. So technically it's a pork and pea with tomato sauce. So first we're going to brown the pork a little bit. So I'm going to put a little bit of oil in there. And then you can use the pork shoulder, you can use a pork belly if you want a little bit fatter. Any pork that you like. You don't want to use the pork loin though, because pork loin is a little bit too dry and it's too lean. Then I'm gonna let the pork brown on all sides. While the pork is browning, I'm gonna make another step. So now I'm gonna make the part of the vegetable that's gonna go in there. So same thing, I'm going to add a little bit of oil. Then I'm going to saute the onion. Now we want to sweat the onion a little bit. Once the onion starts to sweat, probably take about 30 seconds or so, then you're going to add, I use the whole garlic. Different recipe, they do it a little bit different. Some recipe they use a chopped garlic, some use a bell pepper. So if they use a bell pepper, fresh bell pepper, then you saute the bell pepper first. Now to save some of the time, I brown some of this pork already, so I'm going to add those pork into the pan. Once you can see this already start to color, I'm just going to add that in there. So far it's very easy. Then you're going to brown all the meat and vegetable together. Now I use a chunk pork piece of meat because I like to be almost like a stew. If you want to save some time, you cut the pork on the smaller pieces, it's okay too. Now we're going to add this one adds a chicken stock. If you don't have a chicken stock, you can use just a hot water. But if you do hot water, you may want to add a little bit of a chicken bouillon, a chicken powder in there. So if you see, when I use a chicken stock or you use a hot water, you want to use a hot water, because when you cook the meat, see on the pan, the temperature of the pork inside the meat is higher. So when you put the cold water in there, all the juice from the pork going to come out. So you want to make sure that the liquid temperature are higher than what you put the meat in the pork. So this way the juice will stay all in there. After that, it's very easy. This one, I use the roasted bell pepper puree. A lot of time, people will use a fresh bell pepper. The reason I use to be honest, I like to use a puree because for the kids, including myself who don't like vegetable, this is perfect. It will hide it in there. So this is just a roasted bell pepper puree. You can use a fresh bell pepper. Now, some recipe, they will ask to use a tomato sauce or fresh tomato. If you use a tomato sauce, then you want to reduce the liquid, the chicken stock that you added in there. But I'm using a paste, so I can use a lot of chicken stock in it. This is a fresh tomato paste. Just want to make sure the heat is high enough. You're going to want to make sure you stir a little bit, because if you don't, the tomato paste can burn on the bottom of the pan, because tomato paste have a little bit of starch in there to make it thick. So that's why I like to use a tomato paste, because at the end of the finished product, I don't need to add any cornstarch or anything, and my sauce will be a little bit thicker already. Then I'm going to add some bay leaves. This is dry bay leaves, and then you can add it on, and then right before you serve, you can remove it. For seasoning, it's very easy. We're going to use some fish sauce. Now, if you don't have fish sauce, you can use salt at home also, or in Philippines, we use called patis. So that will add the salt. And then I like to add the heat. This one is, I'm not doing a traditional pork guisante because they don't like to put any, this one I just add a little bit of jalapeno pepper in there. I just like the heat in my pork guisante, so I add a little bit of jalapeno. Now in any cooking, when you have a heat, you have a salt, you want to balance it off with the sweet. So in this case, you have the salt from the fish sauce, you have the acidity from the tomato paste, and then now we're going to add a little bit of sugar to balance it off. Then you want them to simmer for, depend how tender you like your pork. Normally for this pork of this size, I cook at least another 45 minutes or so. After it becomes boiling, I could reduce it. And then at the end, we're just going to add a little bit of green pea. I don't do traditional Filipino food because I like to add a little bit of garbanzo bean. Because to me, I think garbanzo add a little bit of nutty to the dish, and it's perfect with a bowl of rice or even a noodle like a pancit. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to see how the finished product is going to look like. So after about 45 minutes or so. So after about 45 minutes or so, you see how the meat starts to tenderize, and you see the sauce a little bit thicken up, and this look perfect. So I'm going to add a little bit of these green peas, because the name of the dish is pork and pea. Like as I mentioned earlier, I love to add one more step, so I add a little bit of chickpea or garbanzo bean. To me, I think this is kind of give them a little bit of nutty and perfect for the bowl of the hot guisantes. So after because of the pork and the chickpea already pre-cooked, you don't want to cook too long. This part of the dish should be at the end. Right now is ready to serve. I always taste my food to make sure that the food tastes correctly, because a lot of time when people follow the recipe, you have to understand also that if your temperature of the heat that you use a little bit stronger, it's going to evaporate faster. So if you heat a little bit, if you make only a little bit, it's going to evaporate faster. So you want to make sure you taste your food and then adjust accordingly. This is perfect. It has a little bit of sweet, a little bit of acidity, and have the saltiness and the heat. And then we're going to garnish with some, you can use cilantro, you can use green onion, you can use whatever you like to add a little bit, a nice touch to the dish. So that will be our pork guisante. Hope you enjoy and come back for more recipe on our next segment.